Hi, I'm Cheryl, people and culture consultant, coach, and facilitator. And this week we are talking about authenticity. We kicked it off last week with the first episode in April. And we're continuing today by talking about when you are challenged in your ability to show up authentically. You know, those times when you leave a situation and you ask yourself, like, who was that? What did I just say? Or whatever version of that question. Those are the moments that we show up as an inauthentic self. You are the source of all of these selves. And for the most part, you are in control of how you show up in any given circumstance. I say that exclusive of trauma responses and nervous system triggers. Those are something that we're going to talk about in the future when we get there. When those occur, you aren't necessarily the one in the driver's seat. So that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about your everyday. If in your everyday, the goal is to enable showing up authentically when safe to do so, even when challenged, then let's talk about how to do that. In a past episode, we talked about the word challenge, and it's the word I want to use in this scenario, just for those of you who've been here for a while. So, being challenged. First things first, know your values and know your value. Our core values offer us high quality filters through which to make choices and take action. When aligned with your authentic self, they can be indispensable. And knowing your value is the intrinsic and wholehearted knowledge that you are worth showing up authentically all the time, every time. Your unique self is one in however many billions of people there are on the planet. And that is important. That is worth the time of anyone so lucky to get to interact with you. That's who we want to cultivate, is that person that brings so much value to the world, because you're the only person that can be that. Number two, so that was number one. Number two, boundaries. Learn what your boundaries are for yourself to ensure your ability to be authentic. Within that, remember that your boundaries are your responsibility. And while setting them can feel hard, it's actually the easier part. Holding your boundaries when challenged is really the harder of those two. Identifying the boundary, setting the boundary, holding the boundary. When someone's pushing up against your boundaries, it can be really hard to hold that boundary. You might feel like you want to fold like a cheap tent. I get it. Especially when that person is important to you in your life. It might be because you love them, or because they hold some sort of power or influence over an important part of your life, like maybe a manager in an employer-employee relationship. Find your courage in holding the boundary when it is the right thing to do. Maybe that looks like offering a loving no, or a no with care, rather than a no with a bunch of explanation attached to it, like, ooh, I can't do that because, and then you either make up a story or embellish a story. I'm speaking from experience. I'm a former need to explainer person. And in my life now, I really realize that I can give a loving no. It's like, I'm going to have to say no to that, or that's just not possible, or I'm not going to be able to make that happen, and leave it at that. No can be a full sentence, and it can also be said with care and with respect. It doesn't have to be mean or rude or harsh, although sometimes it can feel that way because no can be really scary. But love yourself first. It can be a loving no. And last for today, choose your hard. If the first two things are found to be really difficult, you're going to need to choose your hard. It's hard to be inauthentic. It's hard to be inauthentic because it's just sometimes it can feel icky showing up in a way that isn't really true to who you are. It also can be really hard to show up authentically all the time and take the risk of people rejecting that part of us, rejecting who you are authentically. Choose your hard. It's hard to give a loving message that isn't what someone wants to hear, but maybe needs to, but honors yourself. And it's also hard to betray your own boundaries to serve another person. It's your choice. Choose your hard. This can apply to so many different things. It's hard to show up to a party you don't want to be at, but it's also hard to say no and stay home when that's really what you need in that moment. So today's reflection is what is one boundary that you will prioritize holding this week that honors showing up for yourself in the best way? As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you'll never miss an episode. I'll see you next time.